Hello Year 6 and welcome to today's reading lesson. I was aware that you're probably getting fed up with the same background, so mix it up a little bit. Bookcase, picture, back of my head. Anyway, reading lesson today. So we are continuing to look at Wonder. We're continuing to work hard on it, and let's get straight into it. So let's go to the text. I've realised when I'm reading the story in a minute, there will be some questions. There's 4 questions that will be there. What I want you to do is answer the blue one. The other ones, so there's 2 blue ones. You can think about the other ones, but I don't need it written down. But the 2 blue ones, I would like you to have a go at answering as I'm going through the text, okay? Right, now let's get into the text. So in today's lesson, we are looking at explaining, thinking about our vipers. We are looking at the E, the explaining, how our opinions of characters can change. So the task that we're going to be doing, and I want to show you this first, is you are going to be describing how your feelings towards the characters, so Jack, Will, Julian and Charlotte, has changed since we first met them in Mr. Tushman's office. So we're going to be reading the chapter in a minute, but I just wanted to tell you what your task is going to be afterwards. So you're going to be thinking about how you felt about them when we first met them in Mr. Tushman's office, and then how you think about them now after having read 3 chapters. So the chapter where they're in the office, the chapter where they're being shown and he takes some starts on the grand tour, and then the chapter that we're going to read today. Okay, so I'll talk a bit more about it at the end, but let's get into the text. And today we're reading a chapter called The Performance Space. Hopefully you remember they've just come back from the homeroom and science, I think. Okay, The Performance Space. Charlotte basically didn't stop talking as we headed down to the 2nd floor. She was describing the play that they put on the last year, which was Oliver. She played Oliver even though she's a girl. As she said this, she pushed open the double doors to a huge auditorium. So that's like a kind of a theatre type place. At the other end of the room was a stage. Charlotte started skipping towards the stage. Julian ran after her and then turned around halfway down the aisle. "Come on!" he said loudly, waving for me to follow him, which I did. "There were like hundreds of people in the audience that night, said Charlotte, and it took me a second to realise she was still talking about Oliver. I was so nervous. I had so many lines, and I had all these songs to sing. It was so hard." Although she was talking to me, she really didn't look at me much. On opening night, my parents were all the way in the back of the auditorium, like where Jack is right now. But when the lights are off, you can't really see that far back. So I was like, where are my parents? Where are my parents? And then Mr. Resnick, our theatre arts teacher last year, he said, "Charlotte, stop being such a diva." And I was like, okay. And then I started spotting my parents, and I was totally fine. I didn't forget a single line. While she was talking, I noticed Julian staring at me out of the corner of his eye. This is something I see a lot of people do with me. They think I don't know they're staring, but I can tell from the way their heads are tilted. I turned around to see where Jack had gone to. He had stayed in the back of the auditorium, like he was bored. "We put on a play every year," said Charlotte. "I don't think he's going to want to be in the play, Charlotte," said Julian sarcastically. "You can be in the play without actually being in the play," Charlotte answered, looking at me. "You can do the lighting. You can paint the backdrops." "Oh yeah, whoopee," said Julian, twirling his finger in the air. "But you don't have to take the theatre art elective if you don't want to," Charlotte said, shrugging. "There's dance or chorus or band. There's leadership." "Only dorks take leadership," Julian interrupted. "Julian, you're being so obnoxious," said Charlotte, which made Julian laugh. "I'm taking the science elective," I said. "Cool," said Charlotte. Julian looked directly at me. "The science elective is supposedly the hardest elective of all," he said. "No offence, but if you've never ever been in a school before, why do you think you're suddenly going to be smart enough to take the science elective? I mean, have you ever even studied science before? Like real science? Not like the kind you do in kits." "Yeah," I nodded. "He was homeschooled, Julian," said Charlotte. "So teachers came to his house?" asked Julian, looking puzzled. "No, his mother taught him," answered Charlotte. "Is she a teacher?" Julian said. Is your mother a teacher? Charlotte asked me. No, I said. So she's not a real teacher, said Julian, as if that proved his point. That's what I mean. How can someone who's not a real teacher actually teach science? I'm sure you'll do fine, said Charlotte, looking at me. Let's just go to the library now, called out Jack, sounding really bored. Why is your hair so long? Julian said to me. He sounded like he was annoyed. I didn't know what to say, so I just kind of shrugged. Can I ask you a question? He said. I shrugged again. Didn't you just ask me a question? What's the deal with your face? I mean, were you in a fire or something? Julian, that's so rude, said Charlotte. I'm not being rude, said Julian. I'm just asking a question. Mr. Tushman said we could ask questions if we wanted to. Not rude questions like that, said Charlotte. Besides, he was born like that. That's what Mr. Tushman said. You just weren't listening. I was listening, said Julian. I just thought maybe he was in a fire too. Oh, Julian, said Jack. Just shut up. You shut up, Julian yelled. Come on, August, said Jack. Let's just go to the library already. I walked towards Jack and followed him out of the auditorium. He held the double doors open for me, and as I passed by, he looked at me right in the face, kind of daring me to look back at him, which I did. Then I actually smiled. I don't know. Sometimes when I have the feeling like I'm almost crying, it can turn into an almost laughing feeling. And that must have been the feeling I was having then, because I smiled, almost like I was going to giggle. The thing is, because of the way my face is, people don't know me very well. People who don't know me very well don't always get that I'm smiling. My mouth doesn't go up in the corners the way other people's mouths do. It just goes straight across my face. But somehow, Jack Will got that I'd smile at him, and he smiled back. Julian's a jerk, he whispered before Julian and Charlotte reached us. But dude, you're gonna have to talk. He said this seriously, like he was trying to help me. I nodded as Julian and Charlotte caught up at us. We were all quiet for a second, all of us just kind of nodding, looking at the floor. Then I looked up at Julian. The word supposedly, by the way, I said. What are you talking about? He said. You said supposedly before, I said. I did not. Yeah, you did, Charlotte nodded. You said the science elective is supposedly really hard. I heard you. I absolutely did not, he insisted. Whatever, said Jack. Let's just go. Yeah, let's just go, agreed Charlotte, following Jack down the stairs to the next floor. I started to follow her, but Julian cut right in front of me, which actually made me stumble backwards. Oops, sorry about that, said Julian. But I could tell from the way he looked at me that he wasn't really sorry at all. And that is the end of the chapter. Quite a big one, quite an important one. So, back to your task. You are going to do 3 short paragraphs, okay? Each one about the 3 characters, Jack, Quill, Charlotte and Julian. And the example's just below me here. So you could say something like, when we first met Charlotte, I thought that she was, and then I want you to give me a bit of an explanation of what you thought she was like. However, now I think, and then you're going to explain what you think she's like now, this is because. So for some of them, your opinion might not have changed very much, and that's okay. So you're going to put in kind of some explanations underneath, and you're going to do that for the 3 different characters, okay? 1 for Charlotte, 1 for Jack Will, 1 for Julian. I don't mind which order, you can choose. But I want 3 short paragraphs explaining what you thought about the characters when we first met them in Mr. Tushman's office, and then what you think about them now after Augie's been on this tour with them. Okay, year 6, work hard, and I will see you in the next reasonable reading lesson. That wasn't good, sorry. Goodbye.